Welcome to another episode of In the Know, keeping you informed of what you need to know to keep your fleet moving. In this episode, we'll cover the who's who in the U.S. transport sector when it comes to regulations and compliance, and the differences in these state by state. This series is brought to you by Whip Around, the easiest way to manage your fleet inspections and maintain compliance with simple software to keep you in the know about the important information you need to reduce costs and improve the safety, compliance, and performance of your assets. Visit whiparound.com to learn more. There are many agencies, departments, and organizations involved in the creation, measurement, and enforcement of federal regulations when it comes to the transport industry. The overarching body is the United States Department of Transportation, or most commonly known as the US DOT. They generally set the rules for anything that moves. The agency that sits under their guise that focuses on commercial motor vehicles is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association, or again, most commonly known as the FMCSA. They are one of the smaller agencies within the US DOT banner, but have a big impact on such a large and critical industry, with trucking and freight at its core. State-level DOTs enforce the FMCSA regulations, or FMCSRs, and in many cases also have their own set of rules and regulations binding carriers within their state. More on that in a bit. At a state level, agencies like highway patrols also enforce these regulations in various ways, and in some states they are more active in the policing of CMVs than others. What is a US DOT number? Well, under CFR 49, Part 390.21, I'm sure you know exactly where that is. Carrier bound by federal regulations must display the legal name and DOT number in a clearly visible manner on the outside of their vehicle. The definition states, a DOT number is required to be displayed by all self-propelled motor vehicles engaged in interstate commerce. This means no gray on gray or faded stickers. It must be clear and visible to enforcement officers, or really anyone. Who needs a DOT number? There are two main ways you qualify. You meet the federal threshold, which means you operate vehicles over 10,000 pounds, carry more than 8 passengers for money, or 15 passengers, including the driver, not for compensation, and you are involved in interstate commerce. Pretty straightforward at this point. However, the kicker here is that you are also involved in interstate commerce. This is the main criteria for federal regulations, for obvious reasons. Interstate commerce is defined as traveling between states, traveling between two places in a state through another state, or the interesting one is staying within a state, but as part of trade or the furtherance of commerce originating outside of the state. So this means if you pick something up from the port down the road from your depot and drive to another drop-off within the state, if those goods originated outside of the state, you guessed it, you meet the federal criteria as an interstate carrier. Furtherance of interstate commerce, picking up from a port. The origins of the FMCSA came from a state-based system that had to work to some compromises when it was federalized, hence the differences state by state to this day. Over and above the federal threshold we just mentioned, many states require DOT numbers on carriers involved in intrastate commerce too. For example, in North Carolina, you need to have a DOT number if you are involved in intrastate commerce. If you have vehicles over 26,000 pounds, carry 16 passengers including the driver, or you transport hazardous materials. Many states have similar rules for intrastate carriers like this. Some states don't require intrastate carriers to have a DOT number. Those are Arkansas, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, Vermont, and Virginia. According to recent data, there are roughly 560,000 operative carriers regulated by the FMCSA in the U.S. Whilst there are more DOT numbers than that, more than 1 million of these are no longer operational. There are 3.5 million drivers holding or required to hold a CDL in the U.S. Estimates put this number at about 60,000 short of what's needed, with a driver shortage being a critical issue for the industry. Not all drivers require a CDL, with federal requirements for a CDL for vehicles over 26,000 pounds only. CSA stands for Compliance, Safety, Accountability. It is the safety, compliance, and enforcement program of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, that holds motor carriers and drivers accountable for their role in safety. If you want to understand more about how these agencies track, measure, and police these regulations, or what the regulations are, then watch our next In the Know video on the SMS system and the 7 basic categories. Thanks for listening. We hope this was clear and helpful. Please let us know what else you would like to see or hear from us in this series. If you manage a fleet of vehicles and assets and know that there has to be a better way to manage maintenance and compliance than paper forms and whiteboards, then go over to whiparound.com and try it out. From DVIR, maintenance scheduling, and damage reporting, Whiparound is customizable to any asset process or need you have, built on compliance for drivers, fleet managers, and mechanics to use. Visit whiparound.com today.